I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and therefore I start with the premise that we are one body, one organism, that human beings are interconnected and interrelated in a giant web of life where mutuality and reciprocity must prevail in order for us to live in relative peace. What happened in our nation this week with our current leader and many close to him is another example of how we are connected for better and for worse. My prayers are with those in this administration that they will learn the lesson that we are connected. You see, peace cannot prevail if we do not have any ground for which to agree. And that is why it is important for us to establish agreed upon truths. We cannot play with national issues, creating false realities, and expect it not to eventually take its toll on us as an organism. We must find common grounds for which we can agree and build our society from there. This is also true with any community, institution, or church. We cannot create a successful product if we are stuck in modalities that are inauthentic, dishonest, and even deceitful. Eventually, this waters down integrity and our systems fracture. And that is why any system that promotes separate and unequal while saying it is equal will never work. That is our system. That is why we have to keep fighting to embrace instead of erase. The majority in our culture must be vested in an idea for that idea to work, an idea that benefits the whole. And that is how we can survive and even thrive on this planet. And I'm going to say it's hard work. But it begins when we have a shared language, a shared understanding. And that's why Reverend AZ and I emphasized covenant in September. This month we move into awareness. What does it mean to be a people of awareness? To be aware means to notice the big stuff and the little stuff. As we work toward justice, we notice the large acts of injustice and the subtle acts of exclusion that alienate people and deny them their worth and dignity. And for that to happen, we have to all keep learning and growing and challenging ourselves. We are always updating our mental software. A computer is a good analogy here. A computer, if it is to stay present and current, it needs updates. Have you ever used a 20-year-old computer without any updates? It doesn't work very well. A good computer needs daily, weekly, monthly updates to continue to be usable and stay relevant. The great mind, the great human mind, designed the computer. And so the computer then is a reflection of us. Computer analogies can be human analogies. Think of how good you want your PC to be. Then think about how good you want your humanity to be. So we need a common technology that gets updated, and we need a common human language that gets updated so we can hold each other accountable. Reverend AZ is going to talk about accountability. But that's where this book of the month comes in handy, Subtle Acts of Exclusion. It gives us that common language to learn and grow. UUCA, the one thing that I've learned from you is that you do the hard stuff. Being a Unitarian Universalist is not always joyful. It's hard and painful sometimes because we're doing the best we can to live our values in the face of a world that more and more is becoming valueless. And living our values starts with knowing our impact on others, being sensitive to our and others' needs. We seek to do less harm with our thoughts, words, and deeds. We seek justice for all human beings. And we have led this historically, locally here in Maryland and nationally. Marriage equality. Our association really pushed for that, and so did we here in Maryland through our legislative ministry. People in this congregation, including myself, fighting for justice, environmental justice, racial justice. That's what we do. But the next thing for us to become even more radically inclusive, so we can not get in our own way, is learning this common language. So we can check our bias and our prejudice and learn about our unconscious bias and prejudice, so we can stop getting in our own way. So this message is all about being aware and how impactful we are with our thoughts, words, and deeds. And how what we do in our congregation absolutely helps to push forward what happens in our nation. We did that with marriage equality, as I mentioned. Our legislative ministry, ministers, people got involved, and it passed in Maryland. After that, it passed in the nation. We show the way. That's what we do as Unitarian Universalists. Back in 2009, you called your first black minister. Right at a time where the nation had called its first black president. That's significant. That is not coincidence. That is us being on the cutting edge, doing the next best thing. We invited Robin DiAngelo here to speak twice on what does it mean to be white. And she rocked our world. And right after that, she was featured at the UUA General Assembly. Then, of course, she's become a nationally best-selling author. And now our nation is erupting with racial tension. I think we had something to do with that. And just this past General Assembly, our UUA passed a resolution for dismantling white supremacy. Did we play a part? Heck yeah. We are catalysts for change. We lead the way forward, whatever we decide to do with our work. And it does seem that it becomes the nation's work. Think about that. That's big. So what's next? Learning common language to talk about race and culture without offending someone. Or when you do it unconsciously offend someone, we all do, to apologize. That's what subtle acts of exclusion are all about. First, you recognize where you've been belittled as a person, where you've been slighted, where you've been left out and forgotten, taken for granted. And then you apply this knowledge about systemic racism and realize that whole societies have felt this even more. And you think, my God, how could I have missed this? The subtleties. My God, I said some of these marginalized things and marginalized people with these various identities. And it humbles you, humbles me. It should. So getting defensive is the wrong response. Humility is required. That's how we grow. We get curious. We listen more. We ask questions. We assume best intentions. And if we're having a conversation and we get paused or someone says to us, ouch, we don't over-personalize it because we realize something may have come out from our cultural past, from our cultural baggage, from our racial privilege. And we apologize sincerely in love, and we start again. If we want and we truly want a greater connection with others, we say it all the time, building beloved community, all this great stuff. We have to increase as a community our cultural fluency and empathy for people that are different from us. That was a quote by Tiffany Jana, who co-authored the book Subtle Acts of Exclusion. Increase your cultural fluency and empathy for people that are different from you. And her co-author, Michael Baran, he said this, quote, "When other identities differ greatly from our own, we can sometimes dismiss the pain and experiences of others far too quickly," end quote. We have to be more sensitive to the collective pain that we may cause with something that we say, that our little slight could be built upon a whole bunch of slights that someone experienced that day. And so we take every conversation with love and with care. It doesn't mean we don't talk. It doesn't mean we don't relate. It just means that we understand ourselves and others better. This is hard work, and there will be resistance. But if you lean into it, after the resistance comes the real awakening. Seeing yourself in every living thing. Black Lives Matter should lead you to realize that if people have to state the obvious, that my life matters as a black person, as a black man, then there must be a historical, systemic problem that needs to be addressed. And if we don't address this as Unitarian Universalists, then what are we doing? We have to address this by engaging a common language. Then we can share what we've learned with the next person. And over time, we change the world. Over time, we witness thousands more saying they too are Unitarian Universalists. The little things are the big things. The little slights become the big slights. I am excited about what's happening today after church, and I invite you to stick around and be a part of that. We are changing the world. We are creating beloved community. I agree with the gospel producer Hezekiah Walker. He is right when he said, "I need you to survive." I want to put a little UU context on his words as I close. He said this, "I need you, and you need me." That is, we need each other. We're all a part of one big family, God's body. Stand with me or sit with me, but agree with me that we are all one organism, one part of a great, massive body. And it is its will, Spirit's will, God's will, that every need be provided, that everyone's worth and dignity be respected. Because you are important to me. You're important to the whole. And I need you to survive. Let this be our prayer. Amen.